The alien ship arrived quietly, just as the humans liked it. No loud threats, no glowing weapons. Just a peaceful signal and a smooth landing on Earth's green fields. The ship looked like a silver crescent, shining under the sun. People gathered, watching from a distance, their eyes wide with wonder and caution. From the ship, a tall figure stepped out. His name was Commander Velthra, a respected leader from the Zorak Dominion, a race known for strength, war, and conquest. But today, Velthra was not here for war. He was here for understanding. And a secret mission. His people had watched humans from afar for years. They saw that humans never started wars beyond their own planet. Other species poked and tested Earth, but humans stayed quiet, peaceful even. To the Zorak, this was strange. Why would a species with such fire in their history suddenly grow cold? Velthra wanted to see for himself. And if humans truly were weak, the Zorak would take Earth easily. Velthra was not alone. His ship carried spies, scanners, and hidden weapons. But he wore a diplomat's robe, not a soldier's armor. He approached. The human welcoming party, who stood waiting with their own leader, General Marcus Halle, an old war hero turned peacekeeper. "Welcome to Earth," Marcus said, offering a handshake. Velthra looked at the hand, a human gesture he studied, but never understood. Still, he took it, his clawed fingers wrapping carefully around Marcus's hand. "We come in peace," Velthra said with a practiced smile. "We are curious about your people. We seek friendship." Marcus smiled back, but his eyes stayed sharp. "We welcome friends," he replied. "But I suspect you're here for more than friendship." Velthra chuckled softly. "You are wise, General." "Yes, my people are curious. We see your peace and wonder. Why? Your kind fought so many wars on your world, yet you avoid war in the stars. Why is that?" Marcus's smile faded slightly. "Because we learned a lesson," he said. "One we hope others don't force us to teach." The word stuck in Velthra's mind. A lesson? What lesson could make a warlike species turn away from battle? That night, Velthra was given a guest suite inside a human research facility. It was comfortable, with soft lights and clean air. But Velthra couldn't sleep. He paced his room, thinking. His people believed humans were hiding something. Weak species often built alliances or bought protection. But humans stood alone, unafraid, unmoved by threats. Velthra activated his secret device, a small orb that projected a 3D map of the facility. He saw a restricted area underground, marked only by human symbols. His spies told him it was an old archive, full of history and military data. That was where the truth had to be dot with quiet steps and cloaked in stealth gear. Velthra left his room and slipped through the halls. The humans had good security, but nothing that could stop him, so he thought. When he reached the heavy doors of the archive, he hacked the lock with alien tools. The door opened with a hiss. Inside rolled servers, screens, and shelves of data. Cubes. Velthra touched the nearest console. Information flowed through his device, translating human language to Zorak tongue. At first, it was ordinary names of battles, treaties, military ranks. But then, he found them. Files labeled prohibited. Weapons. Images of weapons so large, so destructive, that even the Zorak didn't have such things. Machines that could turn continents into glass. Bombs that could burn the sky itself. And worse, bioweapons designed to kill not just bodies, but minds. Viruses that drove people mad, or silent weapons that stopped entire species from having children. Velthra's breath caught. His people thought humans were weak. But here was proof humans were simply choosing not to fight. Because if they did, no one would survive. "You shouldn't be here," a voice echoed. Velthra spun around. General Marcus stood in the doorway, holding a sidearm loosely, but he wasn't pointing it. He just watched, calm and serious. "You came to see our teeth, didn't you?" Marcus asked, stepping inside. Velthra stood still. His mind raced with explanations, but he knew they would fail. So he asked the real question: why don't you use them? Why let weaker species mock you, threaten you? Marcus smiled, but it was sad. Because we've already used them, once, long ago, on ourselves. The scars are still on our planet, Commander. We learned that if we keep fighting like that, there won't be anyone left to fight. Velthra felt a chill. Marcus walked closer. We are peaceful because we're dangerous, Marcus said. And we are dangerous because we know peace is the only thing that keeps us alive. Velthra stood in silence. He had come to find weakness, but instead, he found monsters who had chained themselves to avoid becoming destroyers again. The alien left the archive that night with shaking hands. The real question now burned in his mind: what happens if someone forces the humans to fight again? And that was the question he had to send back to his people. A warning or a prophecy? Velthra could not sleep after his meeting with General Marcus. The human had spoken calmly, but every word carried a hidden warning. Peace was not a sign of weakness, it was the lock on a cage. A cage holding back something ancient and deadly. But Velthra was not satisfied with just words. He wanted proof. He needed to see the truth with his own eyes before sending any warning back to his people. His spies had already mapped part of the human military base. One section remained marked and forbidden, the deep archive, sealed beneath layers of security, decades old. Velthra waited until midnight. The base was quiet. He wore a cloaking device, a thin belt that shimmered faintly on his waist. His steps made no sound as he slipped past cameras and sensors. Every corner was dark, but his visor highlighted every wire, every hidden device. Soon, he stood before the vault door. It was massive, made of a dense alloy unknown even to the Zarok. The keypad glowed softly. Velthra pulled out a cracked code. Cylinder, freshly stolen from a careless technician earlier that day. The door hissed, the heavy locks releasing. The air inside was cold and still. Shelves lined the walls, filled with metal data cylinders, old holographic files, and ancient servers still humming. A dim blue light guided his way. He tapped his wrist device. The scanner translated human symbols. He passed files labeled World. Wars, nuclear protocols, orbital defenses, but then a section blinked on his screen: extinction-class weaponry. Velthra's heart raced. His people had legends of weapons that could end life on a planetary scale, but humans had entire shelves dedicated to it. He reached for one data cylinder and activated it. A hologram sprang to life, a rotating image of Earth, then entire galaxies. A human voice began to speak in calm tones, translated by Velthra's device. Project Black Horizon. A self-sustaining AI weapon designed to sterilize any star system within 14 days. Originally built as a last resort during the Cold Era. Decommissioned. Status: unused. Velthra's claws twitched. He selected another. Protocol silence. Biological agent encoded to target neural pathways across species, rendering entire populations mute, blind, and infertile within 3 weeks. Status: developed, banned by Terran Ethics Accord. Another, the Hammer Array, satellite-mounted. Particle weapons capable of shattering moons, destabilizing gas giants, or creating artificial black holes within enemy systems. Status: never deployed. Velthra's legs weakened. His people had warships, cannons, and siegecraft. But this was beyond war. This was the power to erase civilizations as if they were dirt under a boot. Yet here it all sat, dusty, sealed away. The humans never used them. Why? He kept searching, hungry for understanding. Then he stumbled upon a video archive titled simply, Last War Footage. He played it. The hologram showed human cities, not from the stars, but on Earth itself. Explosions. Fires, fields of skeletons still wearing uniforms. Bomb craters large enough to swallow entire towns. Then the skies turning black, then red. People screaming, not from wounds, but because the air burned. One clip showed a lone human soldier standing, his uniform torn, his eyes dead, holding a strange device. He pressed it. A flash. Then silence. The screen showed nothing but white. Velthra stood frozen, his breath heavy. Casualty estimate: 1.9 billion lives lost in 72 hours. He stepped back, his mind spinning. Humans had done this to themselves, and yet they survived. They built peace not from kindness, but because they had tasted extinction with their own mouths. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed behind him. "We knew someone like you would come here." Velthra turned sharply. A woman stood at the entrance of the archive, a human officer with gray streaks in her hair, her face unreadable. "You could have asked," she said. "We would have told you, but you wanted to see it for yourself." Velthra said nothing, but his eyes asked the question. The woman sighed and stepped closer. "We built them because we could. But then we realized if we used them, there'd be nothing left of us either, so we locked them away. Not out of mercy, but because we were terrified of ourselves." She walked past Velthra, brushing dust off one of the cylinders. "You think your people are strong, Commander, but you've never had to chain your own strength to survive yourself." Velthra lowered his head slightly. He thought humans were prey, pretending to be peaceful. But now he saw they were something worse. They were predators afraid of their own bite. Before he could speak, the woman added quietly, "You'll tell your leaders. That's good. Warn them. But understand this, if we are pushed, if the chains break. Nothing will survive. Not us. Not you." Velthra said nothing more. He left the archive. The images burned into his mind. His mission was complete, but his soul was now heavy with the truth. Back on his ship, he recorded his message to the Zarak High Command. "Do not wake the sleeping giants. The humans do not avoid war because they cannot fight. They avoid it because if they fight, there will be no galaxy left to win." Commander Velthra sat alone in his guest chamber, but his mind was not quiet. The things he had seen in the human archive still haunted him. Images of dead cities, skies burned black, entire continents wiped away by human hands against their own kind, and yet they still lived. They had survived their own apocalypse. Velthra stared at his communicator. His claws hovered over the button to send a warning to his people. But part of him hesitated. He needed more. He needed to understand not just their weapons, but their hearts. Why build such terrible things and then refuse to use them? That night, there was a soft knock on his door. Velthra stood quickly. He pressed a button on his wrist, and his hidden blade slid quietly into place. The door opened slowly. General Marcus Hawley stood there, alone. His eyes were sharp but calm, like a man who'd already killed and never needed to prove himself again. His uniform was plain, not decorated with medals, but Velthra knew he was a veteran of many wars. "You've seen the archive, haven't you?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Velthra's eyes narrowed. "You let me?" Marcus stepped in, and the door closed behind him. "Of course we knew you'd go. Every envoy sneaks there eventually, but none of them ever understands. I wonder. Do you?" Velthra said nothing. Marcus took a seat, uninvited, and poured himself a glass of water from the table dispenser. He drank slowly. "You're not the first alien to come here, thinking we're weak," Marcus continued. "You all see our peaceful smiles and soft words, but the truth? We avoid war not because we fear losing, but because we fear winning." Velthra sat across from him, his eyes fixed on the human general. "Why fear victory?" Velthra asked. "Every species seeks dominance. What makes your kind different?" Marcus set the glass down, his fingers tapping it lightly. "Because, Commander Velthra, we don't just win wars, we end them entirely. There was a chill in his tone, one that Velthra felt deep in his bones. Marcus leaned back, staring at the ceiling. We fought each other once. Nations rose and fell. We killed by the millions, then by the billions. And each time we built bigger bombs, smarter machines, deadlier viruses. He looked back at Velthra with tired eyes. We reached a point where war wasn't about who ruled, but who survived it all. Velthra's mind raced. His species fought wars for resources, for pride, for expansion. But war never ended a people completely, not like this. Marcus stood, walking to the window that overlooked the human base. Beyond the walls was the Earth's horizon, stars twinkling like tiny flames. Asterisk, asterisk, you saw the files, Marcus said without turning. Black horizon, the hammer array, protocol silence. Things that should never exist, but we made them. Because humans... We're clever, and greedy, and scared. Velthra's throat felt dry. Then why stop? Why keep the weapons instead of using them to rule? Marcus chuckled darkly. We tried, once, long ago. The earth bled. The air burned. For decades, we thought we had won. But what we realized was, we were just survivors standing at a graveyard of our own making. He finally turned around, his face shadowed by the faint light. We don't fight because we don't need to win. We only need to survive. And when you have weapons that can erase planets, winning means there's nothing left to stand on. Velthra stared. For the first time he understood. Humans were not peaceful by nature, they were survivors by necessity. Marcus stepped closer. His eyes locked with Velthra's. If your people attack us, Commander, we won't fight for pride or conquest. We'll fight to survive. And when we do, it'll be as if your people never existed at all. His voice wasn't a threat. It was a simple truth. Velthra's claws retracted slowly. The idea of conquering Earth had seemed so simple, so inevitable. But now it felt like staring into the mouth of a sleeping predator, knowing that if you woke it, it would devour you without a second thought. Marcus walked to the door, then paused. There's one last thing you should know, Commander. Velthra raised his head. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. We've only told you about the weapons we admit to having. There are things, even we fear to remember. Pray your people don't ever wake those up. With that, the general walked out, the door closing softly behind him. Velthra sat alone, the weight of human history pressing on his chest. His claws trembled not from anger, but from the cold realization that humanity's peace was not the absence of power, that it was the silence of something terrible waiting beneath the surface, and he had just seen a glimpse of it. Asterisk, the next morning, Commander Velthra was summoned. A human guard knocked on his chamber door and delivered a message. General Marcus requests your presence. He said, it's time you saw why we fear ourselves. Velthra hesitated. His mind was still restless from the last conversation with Marcus. Yet curiosity burned deeper than fear. He agreed. A military shuttle waited outside the base. Marcus himself stood nearby, wearing a plain jacket, no medals or honors. He nodded once. You've seen the old files, Marcus said. Now I'll show you what they never declassified. Without another word, the two boarded the shuttle. As the engines hummed, Velthra stared out the window. The earth below looked peaceful, lush forests, calm rivers, distant mountains. It was hard to believe this beautiful world held weapons capable of burning it all to ash. They flew in silence for hours, crossing oceans and continents. Eventually, the terrain changed. The green forests gave way to barren lands. A vast desert stretched for miles, lifeless and dry. Then Velthra saw it, a gigantic crater, blackened as if the land itself had been scorched and refused to heal. The shuttle landed on a metal platform, surrounded by towers and antennae. Strange machines hummed beneath the surface, as if the ground itself was alive. Marcus stepped out, gesturing for Velthra to follow. "Welcome to the proving grounds," Marcus said. "No maps will show this place. No satellites dare look too closely. We keep it hidden for your sake, not ours." Velthra followed, his steps cautious. The air here felt heavy, as if history itself weighed down the sky. They reached an observation deck with reinforced glass. Below, deep inside the crater, stood a massive device, a cannon-like structure aimed at the sky, surrounded by black steel towers covered in warning symbols. "We call it the Sunderlance," Marcus explained. "A relic of a darker time. It can fire a beam so powerful, it could slice through a moon like a blade through fruit. We've never fired it at full strength." Velthra's mouth felt dry. "Why build it at all?" Marcus looked at him, his eyes dark. "Because once, we thought someone might make us use it." He tapped the console. Screens flickered to life, showing simulations planets struck by energy beams, their crusts breaking apart, magma spilling into space. Another showed a gas giant collapsing into itself, becoming a newborn black hole. Velthra's stomach churned. His people had weapons to destroy fleets, cities, maybe even continents. But this was the power to destroy worlds. Not conquer, erase, you. "See," Marcus said, "we made these weapons not to fight wars, but to end them before they start. Fear keeps others away, or so we hope." Velthra's voice was low. "But if you fired this, you'd destroy yourselves too." Marcus nodded. "That's the point, a last breath, a dead man's trigger. If humanity falls, the ones who caused it fall with us." Suddenly, a voice crackled through Marcus's communicator. "Sir, prototype test sequence is ready. Firing at 1% power." Marcus smiled grimly. "You wanted to see power, Commander? Watch closely." Velthra stared down at the machine. A deep hum filled the air, like the sky itself was holding its breath. The Sunderlance charged, glowing faintly with pale blue energy. Then it fired. A narrow beam of light shot upwards into the clouds. For a second, it looked harmless like a spark, but then the clouds above split apart, a circular gap forming where the beam passed. The sky turned violet, and even the air seemed to tremble. Moments later, the sky closed again, but not before something horrifying happened. A shockwave spread out across the clouds, warping them like water disturbed by a stone. Velthra gripped the railing. His visor displayed energy readings. Even at 1%, the blast carried enough force to crack a small moon in half. Marcus stepped beside him. "That was barely a whisper," he said softly. "And we have many more like it, each designed differently, each worse." Velthra turned, his voice unsteady. "Why show me this? You could have let me leave afraid. Why confirm it?" Marcus stared out into the horizon. "Because fear isn't enough. Understanding is stronger. I want you to see with your own eyes that if you wake us, if your people push too far, there won't be a war. There will be an ending, swift, silent, final." Velthra said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had come here expecting to measure human strength. But this wasn't strength. This was extinction held on a leash dot as the sun set. The crater looked even darker, like a wound on the earth that never healed. Marcus turned to leave. "Come, Commander, there's one last thing to show you." The archive was the past. This is our warning, but the next place, it's the future. Velthra followed, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. In his heart, he knew, if his people made even one wrong move, they wouldn't just lose a war. They would vanish without even a screen left behind. Commander Velthra followed General Marcus deeper into the facility, away from the test site of the Sunderlance. The halls grew colder, older. The walls changed from polished steel to dark concrete, as if even the humans themselves didn't want to remember what lay beneath. They descended in an elevator that rumbled quietly, its lights flickering from age. Velthra noticed something odd. The human guards who usually stood by didn't follow them down. Marcus had brought no protection, no escort. Why no guards? Velthra asked cautiously. Marcus stared ahead. Because no one wants to be down. Here, not even me, some things. We lock away, not to protect ourselves, but to stop ourselves from being tempted. The doors opened. They stepped out into a wide chamber, silent and dimly lit. The walls were lined with sealed cases, each marked with codes and warnings in a language Velthra's translator barely understood. Symbols of death, extinction, and caution dotted the center of the room stood a single console, its surface dusty but active. A thin holographic interface floated above it, awaiting a command. Marcus approached and placed his hand on the console. "Welcome, General Marcus Hale," an old AI voice croaked from hidden speakers. "Access to extinction protocols granted." Velthra's chest tightened. He had heard rumors that humans had extinction plans, systems designed to guarantee mutual destruction if ever attacked. But what he was about to witness was worse than any rumor. "What is this place?" Velthra whispered. Marcus answered without looking back. "The Archive of Extinction Protocols. Every empire has a last weapon, a final answer. This is ours." With a few taps, Marcus opened the first file. Protocol Leviathan, the AI narrated. An autonomous nanoplague designed to dismantle technological infrastructure. Upon activation, all machines within infected regions, including computers, ships, and weapons, are broken down to molecular dust within 48 hours. Effective range, planetary. A simulation appeared, ships crumbling into powder, satellites dissolving. Even artificial cities collapsing like sandcastles under rain. Velthra's blood chilled. A weapon that didn't kill directly, but turned civilization to ruins. Marcus moved to the next file. Protocol Phantom. Deployment of tailored viruses that target neurological functions across species, inducing madness, hallucinations, and irreversible insanity. Estimated population collapse, 97% within 2 months. Velthra watched the hologram. Populations screaming, fighting invisible enemies, tearing each other apart without a single shot fired. "Why create this?" Velthra asked, his voice shaking. Marcus replied flatly, "Because we were afraid of facing something we couldn't beat in a straight fight. So we made sure that if we couldn't win, no one would." He opened another file. Protocol Silence. A biological agent that sterilizes every living being it infects. Cross-species genetic targeting ensures zero reproduction across affected populations. Time to total extinction, 3 generations. Velthra couldn't breathe for a moment. A weapon that didn't kill immediately, but erased futures, ensuring no children, no heirs, just the slow fading of a people. He grabbed the console, his claws digging into the metal. This is not war. This is cruelty." Marcus turned, his eyes like stone. "War is cruelty, Commander. We just gave it a face you cannot forget." Velthra stepped back, shaking his head. "Why? Why create such evil? Even if you survive, your souls are already dead." Marcus stared at him, unblinking. "Because once upon a time we were monsters to each other. We didn't want to be again. So we put the monsters in these boxes, locked them here. But if someone ever tries to wipe us out, truly, completely, then we open these boxes." The air in the room felt colder, as if even the walls mourned what was stored here. Marcus approached another sealed chamber, but did not open it. "This last one is called Protocol Omega," he said softly. "Not even I can access it fully. Only the Global Council can authorize it. No one has. Not yet. But it's said to be the end of everything. No species, no planet, no star systems left untouched. A reset on a galactic scale." Velthra's legs weakened. He had to sit on a nearby bench. His people wanted to test the humans, to poke the sleeping giant. But here, this wasn't a giant. This was a god chained underground. Praying never to be unchained again, Marcus sat across from him, watching the alien commander struggle to speak. "Now do you understand, Velthra?" Marcus said, "We don't avoid war because we're gentle. We avoid it because if we unleash our old selves, the galaxy ends. Not just our enemies, everyone." Velthra stared down, his mind broken with the weight of understanding. There was no honor in challenging humanity, no conquest. Only an ending. Marcus stood and walked away, leaving Velthra with one last truth. "Warn your people, Commander. Not because we want peace, but because if you force us to remember what we are, there will be no one left to remember anything." Velthra knew then Earth was not just a world of peace. It was a graveyard built atop weapons that even time feared to wake, and his only duty now was to keep those weapons sleeping. The ride back to his ship felt heavier than any war Velthra had fought. He sat silently, his mind still drowning in the horrors he had seen, the Sunderlance, the extinction protocols, and the nameless terror locked inside Protocol Omega. Every breath he took felt shaky, as if the very air around him remembered those weapons and feared them. Even when they reached the human spaceport, Marcus said nothing more. The general simply looked at Velthra, a quiet warning in his tired eyes. Before turning away without farewell, Velthra boarded his vessel in silence. His crew, all hand-picked spies and elite officers, looked to him eagerly, expecting news of human weakness, tales of fragile creatures ready for conquest. But Velthra said nothing. He marched to the command chamber and sealed himself inside. Alone, he activated the secure communication array, his claws hesitating before entering the codes that would link him directly to the Zarak High Command. A moment later, the transmission flickered to life. A wall of faces appeared, admirals, warlords, and elders, all curious. "Commander Velthra," one barked. "What have you learned? Are they ripe for taking?" Velthra swallowed hard. He forced his voice steady. "No, they are not prey. They are not weak." The elders exchanged confused looks. Murmurs filled the air. "Explain yourself," a warlord demanded. "We've observed their peace, their refusal to strike back even when insulted or challenged. Are you telling us they are hiding strength?" Velthra exhaled sharply, then stared directly into the transmission lens. "They are hiding something worse than strength. They are hiding extinction itself." The chamber fell silent. Velthra continued, his voice dark and slow, choosing each word carefully. "The humans have weapons buried beneath their peace. I have seen them. Machines that can split moons, weapons that can sterilize entire species. Devices that turn civilizations into madness and ruin without a single battle fought." One of the admirals sneered. "Exaggeration. No species hoards such horrors without using them." Velthra slammed his claw on the console. "They do not use them because even they are afraid. They've tested these weapons on themselves before they ever looked to the stars. They have already fought extinction and survived it. Their peace is not kindness, it is their last restraint." An elder's eyes narrowed. "You sound afraid, Commander." Velthra did not flinch. "I am afraid. And you should be too." He then leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, growling whisper. "General Marcus told me himself, if we force them to fight again, they will not fight to win. They will fight to erase. Not conquerors, not rulers, just endings." The council exchanged glances. For a moment, their pride struggled against the weight of Velthra's words. But then a voice, colder than the others, spoke. "We are the Zarak Dominion. No threat, no matter how old or hidden, can stop us from claiming what is ours." Velthra shook his head. "This isn't a threat, Warlord Kesser. It is a promise. Attack Earth, and we will vanish, not just us, but our colonies, our homeworld. The humans will not stop with the guilty. They will erase everything connected to the enemy." Warlord Kesser sneered. "We will test them. Perhaps their bark is louder than their bite." Velthra stood taller, his eyes burning with urgency. Then you will doom us all. Because I saw their bite, Kesser. I saw what happens when their chains break. There are no survivors. There are no slaves. There are no spoils. There's only ash ... in silence. The high command stared back, some thoughtful, others stubborn. Politics, pride, and arrogance danced behind their eyes. Velthra knew then, some would not listen. Some would provoke humanity regardless of his warning. That was their way, but he had done his duty. He had carried back the truth. With a heavy heart, Velthra ended the transmission. The screen darkened, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He stood before the viewing window of his ship. Earth floated peacefully in the distance, its blue and green surface glowing softly against the void of space. It looked harmless, beautiful, innocent. But Velthra knew better. You sleep with your claws hidden, humans, he whispered to himself. And I pray the galaxy never wakes you. Yet deep inside, he feared it was already too late. Pride would drive the Zarak to test the humans, to poke the predator one too many times. And when that happened, the stars themselves might grow dim. Because no one survives when the Deathworlders decide to fight back. Weeks passed since Velthra sent his warning, but deep in his bones, he knew no one truly listened. He remained aboard his ship, orbiting Earth, watching the peaceful blue world turn slowly in space. It was quiet. Too quiet for the storm he knew was coming. Then one morning the alarms on his ship blared. Red lights flashed. Velthra rushed to the command deck. His officers looked tense. "Commander," one shouted. "Zarak fleets have entered human space. 3 war armadas, they're attacking human colonies on the outer rim." Velthra closed his eyes. His worst fear was real. He asked quietly, "Have the humans responded yet?" The officer shook his head. "Not yet. No fleets launched, no retaliation. Just silence." That silence terrified Velthra more than any battle. He watched the report stream in. Zarak warships bombarding human outposts, capturing trade stations, burning agricultural moons. They broadcast their victories proudly, declaring humans as weak, unfit to rule. But Earth said nothing. For 6 days, nothing changed. The Zarak celebrated, their warlords calling the humans cowards hiding on their little blue world. On the 7th day, everything changed. Velthra's ship sensors detected a faint pulse from Earth. A transmission, a signal, unlike anything he'd heard. Within hours, human ships launched not from dry docks, but from secret hangars buried deep under continents and oceans. These ships didn't look like war cruisers. They were sleek, black, and silent. His scanners couldn't even lock onto them properly. Cloaked vessels? His officers whispered. Velthra's voice trembled. No, something worse. Then the stars began to vanish. Across the sky, points of light blinked out, not because the stars themselves died, but because something was blocking them. Huge, dark objects emerged from deep space machines, larger than moons. Moving with cold precision, the humans called them the extinction engines. Within hours, the Zarak fleets vanished. No debris. No distress calls. Just gone, erased from existence. Velthra's ship intercepted a single human broadcast. Brief and chilling. "This is not war. This is consequence." Then, the human ships moved system by system. They didn't invade. They didn't speak. They simply erased. Entire Zarak colonies went dark. Their suns collapsed, crushed by artificial singularities. Planets crumbled as nanite swarms consumed every building, every creature, every trace of life, until nothing remained but dust. Velthra's homeworld, the proud jewel of the Zarak dominion, saw its sky turn black before the ground cracked open, swallowing cities. Whole, the oceans boiled. The air screamed. Velthra's ship watched helplessly from far orbit as his people vanished. One moment proud, defiant, loud, the next silent, The human ships never answered hails, never sent ultimatums. Their weapons were quiet, precise, merciless. On the 10th day, there was nothing left. The Zarak Dominion was gone. Velthra stood alone. On his bridge, watching the last data feed from his homeworld. Fires, collapsing skies. Then darkness. He whispered to himself, I warned them. But they didn't listen. Suddenly, a human ship appeared before him, one of the black sleek vessels. No weapons visible, yet Velthra knew if they wanted, they could wipe him away instantly. A transmission came through. A familiar voice, General Marcus. Commander Velthra, Marcus said, calm and cold. You stayed back. You did not join the fools. That is why you are still breathing. Velthra collapsed to his knees, head bowed. Why? Velthra croaked. Asterisk. Why no mercy? Why no warning? Marcus's voice was sharp. You were the warning. We told you what would happen. Your people didn't listen. Now there's nothing left to warn. Tears something no Zarak warrior should ever show fell from Velthra's eyes. What now? He whispered. Marcus paused, then spoke. Now you remember. Now you carry the tale of what happens when the galaxy wakes the sleeping giants. Tell the stars that humans avoid war, not because we are weak, but because when we fight, we end things. The transmission ended. The human ship vanished without a trace. Velthra was alone in space, surrounded by the quiet graves of a lost empire. He turned his ship away from Earth, carrying with him the last memory of the Zarak. He would tell others, if there were any who dared listen. As he watched Earth fade into the distance, Velthra whispered one final truth. They are not Deathworlders by name. They are death itself, waiting politely, hoping no one ever makes them remember. And in the cold silence of space, Velthra flew on, the last survivor of his civilization, the last to remember what happens when you challenge the patience of humanity.